I hereby call this meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. There are 4 items on tonight's general agenda. There is an item discussing an ordinance related to skating and skateboarding. There's discussion of an ordinance related to motor vehicles and traffic. There's an item discussing an update for body-worn police cameras, and there's a proposal for a downtown public safety camera project. Items on the consent agenda will be unanimously approved unless a council member or committee member wishes it to be pulled for discussion. With that being said, members of the committee or council members, are there items that should be pulled for discussion or consideration? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Item G1.
Item G1, discussion of ordinance amending Chapter 74 of the City Code related to skating and skateboarding.
And giving this brief report, I imagine, is our City Attorney, Angela Carmen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I guess about a month ago, I received a request, maybe 2 months ago, to look at extending the prohibition on skating and skateboarding on any public street, right-of-way, sidewalk, or parks that currently exist in the Central Business District to Wake Forest Innovation Quarter, previously known as Research Parkway. So what I've done is to extend that prohibition basically to the Central Industrial District, which includes the Research Parkway or the quarter. There are representatives here, Wake Forest Innovation Quarter, that made that request, and it may be appropriate if the committee wishes to hear from them to support the request.
All right, it sounds like the committee is willing to hear. And I want to say before we call them up that Mayor Jones and I spoke before the meeting. He wanted to be here, but he had an emergency situation. He did express support for this particular proposal. Dr. Tomlinson and Mr. Pleasance is here from Wake Forest Innovation Quarter, and it sounds like the committee wishes to hear from you. And as you come to the podium, I guess I would pose the question, what type of damage do you believe is being done in Innovation Quarter? And to the podium here, more or less, why do you believe that skateboarding should be prohibited in the Central Industrial District?
Good evening, everyone.
And your name and address for the record, please.
Graydon Pleasance, 1800 Greenbrier Road, Winston-Salem.
And I'm Eric Tomlinson, 3811 Ridgeway Drive, Halftown.
The issue for us is, as the Innovation Quarter continues to expand and improve, we are finding ourselves dealing with damage issues relative to our public infrastructure. I have some pictures here that I can share with the committee. You'll know that we've cooperated together to create infrastructure up and down our streets around Bailey Park at East End, which consists of nice new stainless steel benches, et cetera, and they unfortunately are attractive to those that like to slide their skateboard along those. So we've had brand new benches that are now scarred up, and as we expand to rails to trails and all the other things that we're envisioning with lots of people in the area, we want to make sure that those elements that we install are not then damaged by people who are doing something that these elements were not designed to handle. So that's why we're here asking for this evening.
And could you circulate those pictures for us to see?
Mr. Chairman, while he's there,
Councilman Burke.
I would just like to make a comment, not about the skateboards, but about how nice that place is. And it's really a beautiful place. And I'm just looking forward to being able to go down and sit on one of the benches. And I have told them, even before you've been here, how many of you have passed 5th and Patterson, 4th and Patterson, and the lights at night. It's just really beautiful. And I can understand you having a concern, because there are cars going back and forth into the parking area, too. And I reported to the city manager, I believe it's been about, I don't know if it's been 6 months ago, about how some of those people on the skateboards were skating in the middle of the street, right straight down Patterson. And I said, now people driving at night, even during the day, and we don't make our lines real dark anymore. You can hardly see. At nighttime, they don't have on a color that will let you know that the car is coming.
Thank you, Councilman Burke. And gentlemen, I'm going to put you on hold for 1 second. I believe the real issue here is how we provide services to our citizens who like to skateboard. And I do know that the city has done some things this summer, and there's some other things that are on the horizon for skateboarders who want to enjoy that type of sport. Mr. Manager, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the things that we've done this summer and what may be proposed going forward as it relates to skateboarding?
Sure, Chairman Taylor. This summer we hosted an indoor skateboard park at the fairgrounds in the annex for the month of July. It was very successful. The equipment that we purchased is for the ramps and chutes for the skateboard park is designed also to be installed permanently, and we are working right now. Most likely we're going to install it outside at the fairgrounds. We've got to build the pad for it, but it will be available for free for people to use year-round at any time with public access, unless there's some event going on. But we're working on that right now, so hopefully in a few months we'll have an outdoor skateboard park for our. Actually, it's not just young people. There are a lot of adults who like the skateboard as well.
Does anybody here have any questions for the city manager, Mr. Pleasance, or Dr. Thomason? Councilmember McIntosh is recognized.
Having, it's more of a comment than a question, but having suffered the outrage of skateboarders when we proposed this in the West End, you know, there's a fairly vocal, supportive group behind skateboarding. To me, I look at the map, and that's a lot of dirt to sort of cordon off. A lot of it's not developed now. Is there any sort of a plan that works for you guys that where a section of it, you know, the currently developed part could be maybe included in this, and some of the lesser developed parts of the park not be included?
I think the areas that are less developed are open dirt fields, which are not conducive to skateboarding. I mean, as long as you're including all the major roads, which would be Research Parkway, I'm not sure you gain a lot with the east side, if you will, of our mutual stormwater pond and unimproved land. So the issue for us is that our infrastructure, the Rails to Trails project and Bailey Park at East End, pretty well bisects the park and is roughly through the center of it. And anything to the east of that is unimproved grass fields, which is sort of doesn't get a skateboard or anything to work on.
Councilmember. Dr. Thomason, you wish to be heard?
No, not really. Just to amplify the point, the Central District, or Phase 2 of the Northern District, which we're just about to consider development, that could well become a place where some skateboarding facility could be included, but that is in the future sometime. At the moment, it's just an appropriate place to skateboard.
And I think I understand Councilmember McIntosh's thoughts, and I think I understand where you gentlemen are coming from. I think if we take the ability of someone to do something, we definitely want to provide opportunity somewhere else. Right. So hopefully we'll be open to conversations there at some point in time in the future. Councilmember Light.
Well, that's certainly what I was going to say, too, that it would be lovely if amongst all the parkland and everything, there was a place in the central industrial area and innovation quarter. And I'm very, very happy that we are going to provide permanent skateboarding for, well, I can't say just for kids, but at any rate. So, Councilmember McIntosh, did you get to skateboard while
you know, I didn't. My skateboard was not operational.
Oh.
Missed the opportunity.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have the appropriate safety gear either.
Councilmember Adams.
I guess I, too, in some respect, agree with Councilmember McIntosh and yourself, Mr. Chair. The thing is that what you created, and I always tell you, and I've told you this, when you create something, as they say, once you build it, they will come. Even if it's not for them, they will come. Because, as Councilmember Burke said, the lights and the buildings draw you to it, particularly in the evenings. And when you're passing it, even during the day, it makes you want to come there. So I know somewhere down in the future or up in the future, Mr. Pleasance, Mr. Thomason, you need to be talking with your partners and other groups, such as the hospital, since we're talking about childhood obesity and other things that get people to move and exercise. a skateboard requires energy. I don't have that kind of energy. Mr. McIntosh doesn't either. Anyway, you might want to we want to help you protect your investment because it's an investment in the community. But how do you prevent that? As the chair was saying, we can't, when it comes to policing and stuff, I would prefer them get a robber versus a skateboarder. You see what I'm saying? I would rather you protect the neighborhoods from break-ins and burglary than a skateboarder. So I think maybe if you talk to the hospitals and some other businesses in the community, as Councilmember Light said, the land that you have, I thought we saw in the beginning a vision of some park areas and you're going to have the trails, the bikes, the walking. You might want to find an area and maybe somehow partner with the city, put a skateboard park down there, because they're going to come. You can't be there 24 hours a day, and neither can our police. They're going to come. It's just pretty.
Much appreciate that, as you appreciate the Innovation Quarter is truly a partnership with the city and the county and public and private investments. So our view on the skateboarding issue is that this is likely to cause a degradation of the investment that's been made by the city, by the county, and by public investors through the declivity in the amenities. The Greenway will be a wonderful recreation place for helping people exercise. We just want to make sure that it is maintained as a high-quality environment.
And we agree. We're not disagreeing with that. We're just saying, you built it, they coming.
Well, I'm a skateboarder myself, and I've ruined many a fence, actually, so I don't want it to happen.
Chief, put that on the record.
And just not down at Innovation Quarter. So we'll go to Councilman Montgomery, then Councilman McIntosh, and then we'll look to bring this thing to a potential resolution. Councilman Montgomery.
Just my stance, and sorry I missed the initial comments on this, but the danger in my mind of something like this compiled on additional restrictions that we have made with other things from our sidewalk ordinance in which we implemented, in which the no standing piece and others compiled on top of each other. Before long, we're going to have where you can only walk down the sidewalk with your hands in your pockets, moving forward, looking in one direction, or else you're going to get cited. And to me, we have to find a balance in terms of what we exist and how we exist for that. And so for me, I know we had the conversation in the area where Ms. McIntosh had some issues which concern me in terms of how we looked at it, but if it's a neighborhood issue in that sense, was a little bit different for me than extending into other areas such as this. Understanding totally the concern there, my only piece would be that particularly the city-owned amenities that exist in there, that we would make sure that the maintenance of things that are existed in that area are maintained to that level of standard in terms of what's taken care of, like we should do in other areas of our city, but making sure that we're not prohibiting certain citizens from being able to do certain things in the area, while making sure that the concern that those things are being maintained is also kept in the front of our foreminds, because I think that's very important in terms of the overall scope of what we're looking to do in that area as well.
Yes, ma'am. Councilman McIntosh, do you mind? Mayor Pro Temp.
Oh, no, I was going, no, you go ahead. I didn't know your hand was up.
I'm going to vote in favor of this, but what we found in the West End was that policing it or enforcing it was very difficult, if not impossible. What worked was reaching out and having a dialogue with these guys and say, look, this particular spot we think is very dangerous. Somebody's going to get killed here. And they, amongst themselves, police that and stop skating in that park. I think it'll be a similar situation where you guys are. We can pass this ordinance, it'll be illegal, but it will continue to occur if we don't reach out to these guys and say, we got a skate park coming, let's focus on, this is the damage you're causing to the development, let's not skate there. I think that'll be effective, whether or not the ordinance is in place.
Yes.
Mayor Pro
Mr.
Tem.
Chairman, I was going to ask a legal question. If the property belongs to someone, I'm not particularly talking about that property, and somebody gets hurt on that piece of property, who's responsible for that?
If you're talking about private property and the person's injured, I mean, I guess it depends upon whether or not the person was invited to that property and if they're trespassing and so forth. If they're actually trespassing, I would say that the property owner, I would argue, is not responsible for that injury.
Just like we had a piece of property that a person got hurt up there, and we got sued, the city. So I was thinking, who would be responsible on private property? Who's going to take that responsibility to pay for the damages or whatever may happen? That's just for...
Yeah, and this item is for discussion purposes only. And I do understand why this particular prohibition ordinance for skateboarding might be necessary in the innovation quarter. I will have one additional question for our attorney. I'm sure I know the answer to this, but is there something already on the books to address destruction of property in this manner?
I mean, there are some ordinances that generally address destruction of city property, but I think this goes to the specific type of destruction and the instrument that's causing the destruction, i.e. the skateboarding and the skates and so forth. So this is the specific ordinance that would address the concern that's being raised here today.
Members of the council, members of the committee, I think we've had a decent discussion here. This item is for information purposes only, but as I understand it, we could have this brought back to our committee for further consideration in the form of a prohibition ordinance. Does anyone wish to be heard on how we might move forward? Councilmember Montgomery, and then we'll come to Councilmember Light.
Again, I'm now on the committee, but the fundamental issue I have here is, and I brought this up even when we talked about the other item that's on the agenda for the golf carts. We allow segways on, we allow bicycles. They could argue that's transportation, a mode or method of transportation to get from one place to another. So I just caution us on how we deal with that. I'm not a skateboarder, but in defiance, may get me one just to go skateboard.
Don't think
Yes.
it's been a problem.
Come visit.
Councilmember Light.
Sorry. Well, so the ordinance that the attorney has put in the packet, this is just for information purposes, or?
It is.
It
You may
is.
recall under our new process now
Yeah.
you have two passes. It's just for discussion this time, and then the next month or whenever you all want me to bring it back, it'll be in the form of a resolution for passage.
Well, certainly, I would say if we can come back again next month in committee, and certainly take very good arguments from Councilmember Montgomery. So.
Okay. What's the Councilmember McIntosh?
Can we get a better timeline also for when the public facility might be
Right.
running?
And Mr. Manager, you'll bring us that information?
Yes,
And work with the quarter personnel. So it sounds like the general consensus is to bring this back forward for consideration. Madam City Attorney, if you'll bring that forward to the October meeting, and we'll continue to hammer it out and try to move forward with the resolution. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Thank you.
And before I move forward, was there anyone else who wished to be heard on that particular matter? If not, we'll move forward to item G2.
Item G2, discussion of ordinance amending Chapter 42 of the City Code entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic.
Madam City Attorney.
Thank you, Chair. This is an update on our discussion regarding golf carts in the Central Business District. Based upon the meeting in July, there were a couple of questions raised, and I did some tweaks to the draft ordinance. And as indicated by the memo, the first item is to require the pickup and discharge of passengers at what will be called golf cart designated zones, which council can designate. There was concern about the potential for, I guess, passengers being dropped off anywhere along the city street, and maybe it being better for the city council to designate specific areas. So I did come up with some language, which is in 42-293L. Then the other question was about congestion, and I thought perhaps if we could limit the hours of use of the golf carts so that they're not in use between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., which is sort of the time of the day when the roads are heavily traveled. Maybe that would help with some of the congestion. And then number 3, there was a question about a fee structure. Didn't really find any ordinances from other communities that had a fee structure, except for one that basically limited the structure or the fee to $3 per ride. So I actually just inserted that same language in 42-295. Also clarified areas where golf carts cannot go, like the sidewalks and pedestrian walkways. I left in brackets the department to enforce the ordinance, and I'll explain that in a minute. And that's pretty much it in terms of the changes. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, and then we'll talk about the whole issue of enforcement.
Any questions for the city attorney at this time? If there are no questions, I know that the original petitioner is here, who has signed up to speak. And if the committee is okay with that, this might be an appropriate time to hear from him before we move forward with these particular items. If you would give your name and address for the record, please.
237 South Cliffdale Drive. Reviewed some of the things she's updated here. A lot of the stuff sounds great. The time between 4 and 6, that's probably a good idea. Downtown's a little heavy traffic that day. The pickup and drop-off points, the way she has it written, it doesn't allow use of private property, which would be completely off the street altogether.
The designated zones would only be on the city street or on city property.
So if I had a property owner downtown that would allow me to use it, I couldn't.
Then that's, as long as it does not interfere with the passenger zones, that's fine.
Okay. Well, the language of the section J, I'm sorry, would prohibit me from using private property.
Mr. Hinsley, if you will address the committee, and then we'll address the city attorney if we have any questions.
Section J, or section L, I'm sorry, would prevent me from using private property if we go by the language that's in the suggested ordinance. I just want to make sure that if private property is available, that I will be able to use that.
Mr. Chairman, ask him, are you saying, which letter, which alphabet are you speaking of?
And J.
Okay, but he said.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me pull it up here.
You actually have 2 sections, if I may.
There is.
I allows it to be on private property with the consent of the private property owner.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have L, which allows city council to designate those drop-off zones.
So it sounds like both issues are covered.
Yeah, I mean, if the private property owner consents to it, then that's fine. But what we're talking about are designated zones with, on the city streets and so forth.
Okay, I just want to make sure that it was.
Mr. Hinsley, could you hold for 1 second, please, Mayor Pro Tem?
The reason I wanted you to give the letter so you could be clearly understanding it, because you had said I and you had said L. And I wanted to make sure you understood what I said and what L.
Yes.
Excuse me for interrupting, sir.
Yeah, I gives us permission to drive on private property with permission. L allows us only to use areas designated by you guys for pickup and drop-offs. It doesn't say we can use private property for pickup and drop-offs as well. Just like to make sure that's clarified.
Could we add that language, Madam City Attorney?
We can.
Mm-hmm.
The fee scheduling, the language says $3 per ride regardless of the number of individuals in the cart. If 4 people get on the cart, is that $3 for all 4 or $3 per person?
$3 for all 4, regardless of the number of people in the car.
And he would have the ability to accept donations outside of that $3 fee.
If you,
Well, tips. I mentioned
if you want to allow that, I can specifically state that. I think if that's going to be the case, I'd rather put that in there as well.
Pleasure of the committee. Councilmember McIntosh.
If there's only one other municipality of all the ones that are allowing golf carts to use their city streets, there's only one that has a fee structure at all.
I can't say there's only one, but the ones that we've searched and found.
Yeah, and I did some research too, but it seems like most municipalities are not imposing a limit on it. we talked about this last time. I feel like we let the market work on this one. We can always come back and amend, but I don't want to choke off somebody's creativity and coming up with a different fee structure that the public might very much like.
Discussion. There's been concerns raised from Mr. Hinesley about the fee structure. Councilmember McIntosh has suggested that we eliminate the fee structure altogether. I'll just start here, work my way around. We'll have discussion about that. Councilmember Burke.
If he was at a place to pick somebody up, and Mr. McIntosh is by himself, that's great, and I'm by myself, and I feel that I should give him something too if I'm going to get in that car. Now, if we all are together, like we ride these cabs and things when we're away, we pay fee, and when we get in that individual, they'll charge you individually. So I think that we need to look at that schedule.
So you're in favor of a fee structure?
Oh, he wants to do it, but if the economy is too bad, it's not going to be free, I hope, with what you're trying to do.
My goal is to be free. The next man may not be.
That's right. So I think it ought to be, it's nice that he wants to provide this, but it should be I think you should have it.
Okay, that's one school of thought. We'll get them all. Councilmember Light.
I'm sort of leaning towards what Councilmember McIntosh said, that if people, that the market will eventually set this. If someone starts out giving free rides and another person comes along charging $5 a ride, guess who people are going to go with? So, I mean, I think the market will do that. The thing that I'm worried about is this pickup and drop-off zones. I can understand if a pickup zone is at the Chestnut Street parking garage, but someone wants to go to Three Brothers or the Silver Moon or this, that, or the other. I have a hard time seeing how a single drop-off area would work.
Councilmember Light, if it's permissible, I'm kind of OCD about that. If we could go around and address the fee structure, your thoughts about the fee structure,
Okay.
then we'll come back around and discuss the pickup and drop-off zones. That way we don't get confused and
Okay.
we'll stay on point here.
Okay.
If it's okay with you, ma'am.
That's
All
great.
right, I don't want to fight my way out of here.
I'm all for allowing Mr. Hines to go ahead and do his thing free and accept tips or whatever.
Councilmember Adams.
I think I was on the side of we need a fee structure to start with. The market is going to go wherever it goes. But I commend you for what you're doing, but whenever I've ridden the pedicabs or whatever in any city I've been in, there was a fee for me to put my foot in that carriage or that pedicab. Yeah. So I think it's only fair so that we don't have, I don't mind us having a lot of people doing this, but you really don't want that. I think if we put some structure in place, it will also allow you to be able to do what you want to do and be able to help us determine where we go with this. This is the first step.
Right.
But I think we need a fee structure. I don't think anybody's not going to give it to you. I really do. Because that's just the way downtown is.
Right.
But if you got, Mr. Chair, 20 or 30 golf carts downtown right now, and all of them are free, it might get a little crazy for our police people. The police, I might get mad because you got in my golf cart, and you know what I'm saying? It keeps things kind of order. That's where I stand. It's order.
Right. Councilmember Montgomery.
I see both sides of it in terms of letting the market kind of drive itself in terms of what the fees are. The only piece that I argue in reference to having some fee structure in place, at least setting the max, not necessarily the minimum, but at least setting the max in place, is because of looking at the taxis. And this is the closest thing, in my opinion, in downtown to the actual taxi and the way that that's regulated, because of the fact that this is powered. Yes, we had the horse-drawn carriages and the peddlers, and they do that kind of stuff, but because this has some power to it, different from that, it's the closest to a taxi in that area. And for me, it's in that competitive place. And so If we set something up without a fee structure that's directly competing with the taxi services, then we would need to address some things within the taxi. So that's my only reason why I say we should go ahead and at least set a maximum in terms of what's charging. They can flex within that space, but at least we understand that. And then to the point of how many people are on, when you get in a taxi, they oftentimes have a set flat rate, maybe it's $3.25, and then for every person after that in there, it's $1 for that person in the taxi. And I don't know if we do some form of that, but I think that there should be some flexibility in the way that works. But for me, it's the max and not necessarily the min, but somewhere in that area.
But we've heard arguments for and against the fee structure. It seems to be tied 2-2. I think Councilmember Montgomery brings up an interesting point that could bring up a compromise, setting a maximum fee structure and then letting the market continue to dictate itself. If we need to come back and set that fee structure, I believe we have the authority and the ability to do that. So would committee members and council members be open to moving forward with that particular compromise?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Does anyone disagree? Madam City Attorney, we'll move forward. We'll set a max. And if a fee structure is necessary, then maybe we can bring that back for discussion. But judging from your face, we may have said something in error.
No, it says right now it's kind of a max, does not charge, or the fee does not exceed $3 per ride. So you want me to?
I think that the definition we're seeking is what does ride,
Right.
what constitutes a ride? Is that
Per person.
members of multiple parties going to the same destination, or?
Madam City Attorney is recognized.
Yeah, let me finish. So are you wanting to say a maximum per ride or per person? For example, as Councilmember Montgomery just mentioned, maybe for the first person who gets into the golf cart, it's $3, and for each additional person thereafter, it's $1. Kind of what exactly are you thinking about? The $3, kind of what I have here, is also sort of modeled off of the horse-drawn carriage concept. So that's kind of where I got it as well. But again, just kind of tell me what your thoughts might be.
Committee members, are we saying 3 per rider or 3 per ride?
What the attorney said again, what were your interpretation a few minutes ago?
Now I'm asking, are you wanting to set a maximum per rider or per ride? In other words, would it be $3 for the first rider and then maybe an additional $1 or $1.25 per rider?
Like taxis do.
Like taxis do? Kind of, what are your thoughts on that?
That's
Councilmember
what I
McIntosh.
avoid is to get into that level of tinkering about fares. But I do want to also avoid somebody coming in and setting up an operation, going by all the rules, and then showing up and charging $20 a ride, and all of a sudden the program's a complete failure because somebody gets ripped off.
So maybe we set a maximum of 5 or $10.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe increase the amount.
But-
You want me to start with 5 or 10?
5 or 10 members. I can be a czar if you want me to. I'm asking for input.
So I would think that it's more a question of, instead of per ride,
Per rider.
to make it per rider, because you're going to have strangers getting in to the golf cart, and are you going to pay the $5 and then I'm going to just pay $1? No.
Good point.
So I would think to say, to do it per rider.
Rider.
$2 or $3 per rider.
I agree.
Not to exceed $3 per rider.
Right.
Yeah, I think it seemed fair.
So the language may read from consensus not to exceed $3 per rider.
Okay. Is there a max for the total ride altogether?
Well, I think we have
Depends on how many seats on the cart, I imagine, and you've made provisions there.
Yeah.
The amount of seat belts there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Mr. Thiel, we see you. We'll get around to you. Mr. Hinesley, do we have it about covered here?
The only other question is the limitations of where I may travel. Are we, in the CBD, does that exclude the Innovation Quarter? Are we leaving them out of the program here?
The central business district is different from the
It
central
is.
industrial district, so that would be, for the most part, excluded.
Okay.
Councilmember Montgomery, you want to address that point?
Yes, with the current development of Bailey Park and other things there, I think that that is in terms of development-wise and the scope of transportation, once that's fully developed, that would be, in my opinion, for that type of services. If you're on that end with the residential that's coming and you want to go up to the other end of downtown, I don't know if we extend it to the entire park, but at least particularly those areas that are really being programmed now is of interest.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that the Central Industrial District should be added. Is there anyone opposed to that? Madam City Attorney, do you see any reason why that shouldn't happen?
No, just, I assume all the streets are 35 miles per hour or less in the,
They are.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
okay. That would be my.
So that keeps in line with the proposed ordinance. Thank you, Mr. Mr. Hinesley. Excuse me. Mr. Thiel, if you would come up and give your name and address for the record. And anyone else who may wish to speak on this item, if you could just maybe show your hands and we'll try to get you in and out as quick as possible. Mr. Thiel is recognized.
Jason Thiel, 305 West 4th Street, Suite 2E, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27101. I rise to support the idea of using the golf carts as a form of transportation. I came and spoke to you about 2 months ago, and I want to commend our city attorney for the provisions regarding the annual inspection. I want to tell you that's a very important part. At the time I talked about having, let's say, just a 30-year-old municipal golf course fleet dumped out in the middle of downtown. And this is the only part of the city where you guys are going to allow this type of this type of activity for good reason. And so, by and large, like I said, I stand in support of it. I have offered one other piece to consider. If I just got back from the beach where I think I was near Myrtle Beach, and I saw that the people were having like an arms race with their golf carts. They're really fabulous golf carts. And I suspect maybe we'll have that here with some people who live downtown, and it'll be a nice little quality of life thing, and I think it would be very nice. They can have their favorite football team on the side and go from home to work or to a restaurant, and I think that's great. However, we've also taken from a personal use cart to a business proposition. And so the only thing I would ask you to think about is part of the revenue system will be based on advertising or signage. And I'm not against having some signage. In fact, I'm for it because I want it to have some revenue. What I don't want to have happen is it to become a folly where the advertising overtakes the entire cart, for it to become overwhelmed with signage. So I come up with just a subjective concern that I think is potentially foreseeable, not maybe with this young entrepreneur, which I applaud, but possibly with someone behind them. And it's common for you to go and use the analogy of a taxi. Whenever you go to cities that have a large fleets of taxis, they have one sign on top. It's double-sided. Just something to think about. You're leaving it completely open-ended right now. Okay?
I know the issue of signage has come up before. We want to make sure we're putting out something that is nice and neat, that people, that won't be grotesque or something that is aesthetically displeasing. So, members of the committee, council members, how do we want to address the issue of signage? Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Chair. You know, we did talk about this, and I was one of the ones that said that some people can get a little ambitious about the signage on the golf cart. Golf cart's not that big, but if they start to overlay signage and it looks like some of my cutouts I used to do when I was a child, when I wasn't too artistic. But we got to be careful. I think whatever we do, just like we do with, and I know my council member over here may disagree with it, but I agree with Mr. Thiel. I don't see anything wrong with us determining how the advertising should be, whether it's one on each side, two on each side, two on the back, across the top, and that's it. And I don't want to limit, you know, anybody from making their income, but we got to make sure that we understand, don't let it just happen. Again, I believe in some sort of structure, and then we work from that point. If we see that when they follow that, and we determine that we want to add more, allowing them to put more, we can do that. But I think we need to have some structure.
Councilmember Montgomery, then Councilmember Light.
My stance on the actual signage piece is, originally I was just adamantly against the fact of it. I'm open to how we would put restrictions there, but it's how we do it. And the reason that I was against it is the fact that you have individuals who can drive cars and they can put as much as they want on their vehicles. The difference for this is that now we have added a privilege for individuals to provide this service, and because it's a privilege to provide this service, then I can come to the place of saying where we need to provide some sense of signage. But then on the other side of that is we don't want to be too cumbersome in terms of how much signage, because then it prohibits the amount of revenue that can be produced. Right. And I think in all of our minds, we know what obscene or is or what too much is, but how do we actually define that in the language, I think, is a little more difficult. And I don't know how we get to that place, because in my mind, you know, you have something where you barely can read stuff and it's all run together and it's just is not aesthetically pleasing. I think in our minds, we could probably, if we saw it, we could point it out. But how we actually put that in writing, I think, is a little bit more difficult.
Councilmember Light.
I think part of my problem is that I don't really know what these golf carts are going to look like. Do they have sides?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're enclosed seating? No?
Sometimes.
Rails. They have rails right here, right here.
Ah.
But the sides of the cart.
So, I mean, you know, I'm not certain I understand how much room there is for advertising. So, at any rate.
So, in the interest of time, we've got two more issues to hammer out, and I know we don't want to be here all night talking about this thing, but this has been lingering in committee for some time, and I know we want to capture the full season so that the entrepreneurs can get out and make money and provide the service to the citizens. Madam City Attorney, is there a way that we could address the signage where it does not overlap, it's nice and neat on the front, the back, and maybe on the top, and that, you know, the business owners can make a little bit of profit while advertising some of the other businesses downtown or in the Winston-Salem community?
I can try to come up with some language. Most of the ordinances that I looked at did not have any language that addressed signage, but I'll try to come up with something. Bring it back.
So, Councilmember McIntosh.
May I suggest that before we meet again, that the operator, the proposed operator, tells us what works for him, and then we make a decision on whether that's too much, too little. He's got a revenue model that he's working off of. So let's see if that works, if we can live with that. If it's a 4x8 sheet of plywood attached to it, you know, that's too much. Let's see what his needs are and work from there.
Mr. Hines,
I'd like to see pictures of it.
Visually.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm with you.
Does he have a picture of his
Visual.
proposed product?
do you happen to have a picture at this time?
Wow.
And I imagine this is becoming more and more time sensitive as we run into fall, then winter, but we want to get this thing right as well. So while he's looking, there's two more issues we need to address: the pickup and drop-off zones, and who will enforce the golf carts. Will it be the Winston-Salem Police Department? Will it be the Department of Transportation? So let's go to Councilmember Light, who discussed earlier the drop-off zones. You have some concerns or something you want to discuss along that vein?
I just don't understand how it's going to work. If someone in the parking lot gets on the golf cart and says, I want to go to X, and you say, no, I can't stop at X, just leap off as we drive by. So, I mean, you know.
We don't want that.
No. So, you know, that's my question. Is there going to be a drop-off zone in every block, or what? How do you say, no, you can't get off here when this is where you want to go?
Councilmember McIntosh, you want to address that point?
Yeah, I would envision that he would have zones or districts, one being in front of the Stevens Center, one being Sixth and Trade, one being Bailey Park. So you'd know where to pick up, which is important to your ridership to know where you can actually get it. But I don't think there would be a demand. I don't think it would be in his best interest to be dropping off and picking up
everywhere.
place, so you-
Right.
Well, maybe he can work with the downtown partnership. When we go to other cities, they give you maps, and you can say, this is a drop-off point, this is not a drop-off point. Mr. Thiel, I see you nodding your head, so maybe in the interest of time, we'll just have the petitioner get with Mr. Thiel, who will work with the partnership and the surrounding businesses on drop-off points and pickup points. They'll convey that information to the city staff, which will get it to us by our next committee meeting, if we so choose to leave it in committee. Mayor Pro Tem.
I was going to say, he could go to the visitor center. They have a lot of visitors coming in, and they know drop-off points. That would be one way that they could do it.
All right, Councilwoman Montgomery, the drop-off pickup point.
And last, my question is similar, and I made this comment last month when this in terms of Miss Lights in reference to if I want to go to Tate's from Bailey PowerPoint, I want to get dropped off at Tate's if I'm paying you $3. I don't want to have to walk back. But those who ride, that may be them. That's just from my perspective in terms of how it is. And so I'm hopeful, keeping in mind wherever the drop-off points may be done in a way where it's not prohibitive, where a person wants to ride, that they don't have to walk too much further back to where most of the things are happening, because at that point it becomes,
And
Right.
taxis don't have pickup and drop-off points.
Right.
Maybe we could slightly pull to the side of the road in a responsible manner like taxis do. I don't know, but you'll bring that back to us in committee. Sounds like we're going to have to hold this thing one more time. The last issue before we move forward to the next item on the agenda is who will execute the enforcement of the golf carts? Is it going to be DOT or is it going to be the Winston-Salem Police Department? Councilmember Burke.
Did she have something already?
I do. Just a couple of points. If we're going to put it in the vehicles for hire ordinance, I just wanted to make sure you understand that essentially, as with all of the vehicles that come under that ordinance, that the golf carts would be subject to a certificate of public convenience and necessity.
Right.
And those applications are generally submitted in October for council approval in January and February. Then renewals are done basically November and December. And there's a driver's permit that's required as a part of that process, and some disqualifiers as well. But I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
So,
Question. You were saying who would see if they were in violation, who
Yes,
would
ma'am.
monitor the police or the DOT?
Department of Transportation.
Well, I'll just tell you one thing. With many problems we have in this city, I'd hate to see our police behind those little golf carts. I would. I mean, we have so many things happening.
That's right.
And you're going to tie their time
right.
up with something,
That is right.
Well, that sounds cut and dry to me. Sounds like the general consensus is we do have traffic enforcement already in place through the Department of Transportation, and without objection, we can just keep it there as opposed to burdening the police department with that. Councilmember Montgomery.
I don't disagree with the sense of burdening police with additional, but it's a question of when are DOT individuals actually in place to actually regulate. And so if they're not present, do we ultimately create an environment where it's not actually regulated if they're not there? I don't want to put more on officers, but that's a question whether or not we put it in that area to regulate it and they're not. And so police would still necessarily cite, like if they saw something, they would cite that, but it would come back to DOT. Just help me understand the process of how that would actually work.
Police would do the enforcement, but in terms of, I guess, the inspections and things like that, man,
Okay.
we're going to put
Okay.
that, sounds like, in DOT.
Just
Right.
just like taxi cabs.
Right.
Permits and stickers.
Yeah.
So we all speaking the same language.
Right.
You're all right.
Okay. Councilmember, anybody else wish to be heard on that? So we'll hold this in committee, and the only thing that we need to discuss is the pickup and the drop-off zones.
Signage.
So, and the signage. Yep. Is there anything else we've missed? Mr. Hinesley, if you will. Okay, is it electronic?
Not for
In the interest of time, if you would just email that to the city manager, and he'll get that to all of us. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
All right, we'll hold this item in committee, and we'll move forward to item G3.
Item G3, update on body-worn camera policy, training, and deployment.
Giving this presentation will be our police chief, Chief Barry Roundtree.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, Chairman Taylor, and members of the Public Safety Committee.
Good evening.
Actually, I'll allow Sergeant Scott Wright to provide the training tonight, or the overview. Sergeant Wright is our in-house expert for body cameras. Also, we have present tonight the supervisors and our training staff, Assistant Chief Blakely, Captain Perry, and Lieutenant Watts. Sergeant Wright.
And while Sergeant Wright is coming to the podium, I will say that the city of Winston-Salem did receive national recognition for our purchase of body cameras.
Yep.
And, you know, there were some things that happened, some events that has happened in Ferguson, Missouri, and the premise was that the purchase of these body cameras helps to prevent situations like those by making sure that both parties are accountable and giving us a true account of what actually happens in situations like these. So body cameras is a good thing, and we're happy to have the discussion. Sergeant Wright.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
We are ready to move forward with the deployment of our cameras. Actually, I've conducted 4 training sessions so far. Throughout those 4 training sessions, the equipment we received to outfit 95 officers, I was able to get 90 of the officers done. The 5 that I didn't get, just due to them being on vacation. I have 2 additional sessions coming up for those officers to get their training in by Friday. So tomorrow we look to deploy all of those cameras to the officers that are working. We'll have 90 cameras on the street that are on 90 officers throughout our SRO program, our K-9 officers, and the Field Services Bureau Division. The training consisted of about 2 hours of training. Most of the time was spent teaching the operators how to operate the piece of equipment, going over the different mounting options for them, and covering the policy. They're allowed to ask questions during that time, manipulate the piece of equipment, and we go over how they're going to label the videos that are captured on the cameras and how they stored in their evidence.com account. If you remember earlier in the year while I was here and I talked about storing in evidence.com, the cloud-based storage system, we went over that in great detail to train the officers how to store the videos. So we're not keeping videos that if we may not need. If I'm pushing a car out of the roadway or helping someone change a tire, I don't need the video of that. But again, also teaching them how to label the videos that we do need, our community contacts, other things like that.
And as you mentioned, Sergeant Wright, there is now a policy. I know we've had some training, but there is now a policy in place that tells officers how we expect for them to conduct themselves in relation to cameras.
Yes, sir. We did have our policy approved last week. It's General Order 2.35. When I'm giving the officers a training, we do go over the general order as well to make sure that they understand how they're expected to use the cameras and maintain that piece of equipment according to the general order.
Any questions for Sergeant Wright? Councilman Belay.
Sergeant, tell me, I am not computer literate or cloud literate, but I do read about the problems that they're having with the cloud being able to be hacked. Is there any safeguard that that the police department can put in place to keep that from happening? Say, for someone to be able to get hold of the movie of that's important evidence.
Yes, ma'am. The evidence.com is actually maintained and secured through Taser International. They're constantly working on monitoring their evidence.com, the cloud. They guarantee that your evidence is secure. However, just like anything in this day and age, as soon as there's someone out there smart enough and has the capability to create a program that they say cannot be hacked, well, there's someone right behind them that's working on a program to try and say that it can't be hacked. They do stay on top of it. They're partnered with other agencies throughout the United States and throughout the world, and the CIA uses part of the evidence.com to store some of their evidence. So evidence.com is about as secure as we're going to get using that cloud storage-based system.
Councilmember Montgomery, then we'll come to Councilmember Adams.
I know you stated that in part of the training is with individuals to know what videos to keep, to how to label and do that process. What safeguards are in place to show, and it may be a tool that they have, let's say you deleted a video today and you realize next week that you actually needed that video. Is there any way to recoup that video that was labeled as something that you didn't need?
Right now, for example, if I was recording a video right now and I didn't need to keep this video and I labeled it as no evidentiary value, it's stored in our system for 90 days before it's actually purged. So there is a safeguard that it's stored for 90 days, that if I went back and decided that I do need that video, I could go in, take it out of that category, change it to the most appropriate category, and save that video then. But there is 90 days.
Okay, and
Sorry.
Go ahead.
There's no, the officers themselves don't have right to go in and to delete a video right then. The system's set up that there's no way to delete a video immediately, even if an administrator of the system who has rights to delete a video, there's 7 days before that video is deleted. So there's no instantaneous deletion of a video.
Okay.
So, Sergeant Wright, officers have the ability to determine whether or not a piece of film has evidentiary value. I think that's the term you used.
Yes, sir.
So it wouldn't be the supervisors, or it wouldn't be the assistant chiefs or the chiefs. The officers themselves have this authority.
We're putting this responsibility on the officers. Now it's a supervisor's responsibility to go in and conduct periodic checks, make sure that the officers are properly labeling their videos. Again, when we first brought this to the committee, we talked about the storage costs with this, and we want to make sure that officers are properly labeling the videos. We're maintaining the videos that we need to store, that we need to keep, and also that we're not keeping videos that we may not need to keep.
Councilmember Adams, forgive me.
Thank you. And this may be Sergeant Wright for the chief. Now we're going to roll it out. Are we ready to roll it out, meaning that we're prepared for the marketing media side of this to the community? I mean, I think that's important because if we do this and we've not engaged the community to know the reason, as you stated, why we're doing this, then I think we've lost an opportunity to engage the citizens.
Chief Roundtree is recognized.
Yes, you're correct. We have done some, I guess you can call it public service announcements with the media. Most recently, last week, we had a couple of segments where the media came in and they asked questions about the body cameras. We informed them that we will be coming before public safety tonight, and then shortly after tonight, we'll roll out the 95 additional cameras that we have.
And I guess what I'm looking for is, okay, we did meet, but most of us don't remember that there was a meeting. And I'm saying, just like the media is here, if you could get with them, Ed McNeil and Mr. Garrett and you guys, and whatever day those cameras hit the street, that needs to be on the front page, on WXII, you know, in our Facebook, to let citizens know, so no one will come back and say, well, you know, they rolled those cameras out yesterday and nobody told us, you know. Yes,
and we've had media inquiries dating back since we originally came to the Public Safety Committee. Also, we do have a press release that's prepared so we can put it out once we leave here tonight.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Burt.
I thought when we had that meeting, Chief Roundtree, we were talking about neighborhood presidents and people with crime watch people. You would make sure they were aware of things as well.
That's been done to some point also, most recently at Councilmember Montgomery's town hall meeting 2 weeks ago. I brought the subject up about the body cameras would be deployed very soon. So we have been doing that as frequently as we can.
And also, Chief Roundtree, I feel that you need to continue to do it because there are a lot of neighborhood meetings. And I think when you have your people, your presidents, knowing things, they help the other folks to know it. One thing that I was concerned about is it Sergeant Wright?
Yes, Sergeant Wright.
Sergeant Wright, about keeping the evidence. The police will make a decision on the evidence to keep. Now, if I would be honest, police, I mean, if I was police. But, I mean,
of course.
But if it was something on there that I think, I don't want nobody to think that I did, how do you keep that from happening?
What the part that Sergeant Wright was talking about for the evidentiary value, for example, if an officer stops a person for DWI he knows to flag that particular video so he can use it for court. Also, the administrators and the supervisors can also go in, they can monitor the officers' footage without the officers being present. Also, I have a category that we will be doing also where we can capture the officers' foot patrol or walk and talks, and also their community contacts. So when I have questions about where the officers aren't getting out of the car, the officers aren't going up to people, speaking to them, we'll have that information on footage also.
Good deal. Okay. Good deal.
Councilmember McIntosh.
2 questions. Can an officer turn the camera off?
Yes, the officer
Like to choose to not turn it on, get down in the car.
Well, it's in the policy where the officers are required to record any interaction with a citizen, not just 2 officers sitting there talking, but if they're going into a store to investigate a case, or if there's a traffic accident, the officers are required to have the cameras running.
But if I'm rolling up on old Grumpy Smith's house and I know this is going to be an ugly interaction and we're not going to resolve it and I'm going to look bad on this, I can choose to have my camera turned on.
By policy, they're required to have the cameras running.
That's right.
Yeah. And if old Grumpy Smith files a complaint,
That's
and
right.
we find out, we're going to deal with that officer.
That's right.
That was going to be my next question, Mr. City Manager.
And then my last question is, how do rank and file feel about these? Is it a morale booster, or how has it been accepted by the officers on the beat?
Well, I think for some, just the unknown, and because it's new, we experienced some of that when we initially installed the car cameras back in 2006, 2007. I think most officers and the rank and file understand that this is the time. With the technology now, it's almost expected that we have some type of video. Our word oftentimes is not accepted. People want to see the video. The court system, just about everybody wants to see the video or ask if there's a video.
And as a city, I believe we have to continue to grow and get better.
Yeah.
I mean, there was concerns, I hate to bring this up, at one point in time about some checkpoints. But we grew, we got better, we put measures in place to ensure that, we continue to improve. And I think this is one method. Nobody wants a Ferguson, Missouri.
Absolutely.
And I think this is the way to prevent that from happening. If the police officers follow the policy and procedure, I believe we won't have those types of issues. Councilman Montgomery, we'll wrap this thing up.
To the question of the account in terms of keeping up with those, that's what my question is. But to one quick comment on it, that because of the fact the downtown bike patrol has been using those, how long have they had those?
Late 2011, early 2012, so almost 2 years, or just over 2 years.
To me, I think that has shown a benefit with having them there. So I think it continuing going in a good direction.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say that you have an instance where you have a complaint on an officer for how they handled a situation. And I think what this provides also is opportunity to look back in terms of, I have a complaint on Officer Joe, and, we want to look back and say, is this an isolated incident, or is this something that has been occurring over a period of time? Now, what happens when that video's there, but because you've deleted things that in the past have not had quote-unquote evidentiary value that would have captured, past history in terms of interacting where there was no complaint? That just, to me, I think the majority of officers are great officers and do great job in what we do. But it's just a sense of, if there is that time where we have that, if you've deleted, things that at the time in past the 90 days didn't have any value, but would have illustrated over a course period of time continued history and interactions of individuals, that's just wondering how we capture that. And hopefully if that's a person and they have consistent, then it'll be captured probably in some of the other videos that they've kept on file.
Well, we would hope that the supervisors' audits, the required periodic audits, would catch that. Even if a citizen doesn't file a complaint, we want the supervisors to go in and look at the video to ensure that the officers are doing what they're required to do, making sure that they're treating people with respect also.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Burke.
And sometimes police who act that way, they'll soon walk out. They'll walk themselves out of a job because they find ways to monitor folks when they're not following the rules.
We also want to make sure that the officers are treated with respect. There are some people who don't treat them with respect as well.
Yeah.
Respect and accountability on all sides of the equation.
Absolutely.
So I think we all agree this is a good deal. Thank you, Sergeant Wright, Chief Roundtree, City Manager Garrity.
Chairman Taylor, Chairman Clark from the Finance Committee inquired last week or a couple weeks ago how many cameras we had ordered. He asked it specifically in light of Ferguson, and he asked if we could get that information about how many more cameras we might need to add with a budget amendment. And he said if this committee, he would defer to this committee, but if this committee wanted, he would be glad next month to take up an amendment, a budget amendment to add more cameras. We need about 110 more cameras on top of the ones ordered last year and this year, and that's about $175,000, I think. And if this committee wants us to move forward, which I think is a good idea, we'll bring that back to Finance Committee.
Yeah, but the way technology has evolved, I think every officer on the street should have one.
Absolutely.
So unless anyone is in opposition, I believe that we all believe it should come to Finance for consideration.
And also,
Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
you've never seen this Public Safety Committee put a price tag on
No, ma'am.
safety.
No, ma'am.
You can't do it.
No.
I think that's a good way to end that. Item G4.
Item G4, proposal for downtown public safety camera project.
Chief Roundtree, you're going to have to give us the short version.
Okay, good evening again. I do have a PowerPoint. I can get through it fairly quickly.
All right.
Okay, fairly quickly, I stand here tonight to present a proposal for a downtown public safety camera project. Of course, downtown is the centerpiece of the city of Winston-Salem and all of Forsyth County. Being the home to over 15,000 residents, downtown is also a major employment center with restaurants, entertainment, retail establishments, 3 city parks, the Arts District, and also the home of numerous parades and festivals. As I'm sure you are aware, we've made a large amount of city investments downtown. Also, there have been quite a bit of private investments made downtown so we can have a vibrant downtown. I feel from a public safety standpoint, there are numerous benefits to having a public safety downtown camera project. Being a progressive city like Winston-Salem, I think this is what we need here in this city. So to speed things up, why should we consider such a project? Number one is the benefits. We can improve downtown and community safety. We can reduce crime in the downtown area. It's a force multiplier where we can actually increase our capacity by having this downtown public safety camera project. It can assist us in criminal investigations and prosecution. It can increase the perception of safety in the downtown area. I'm sure you are aware that even though it may or may not be a safety problem, depending on individuals' perception of safety, that has a big impact on how they feel about the overall safety of the city. We can improve traffic safety and also reduce the calls for service in the downtown area. Why do we need such a project? The project's need. We can increase downtown residential and business population in the city. Of course, I mentioned the growth in the downtown area, over 15 to 20,000 residents presently downtown, and that's going to grow over the next 5, 15, 20 years in the downtown area. The significant city and private investments that has been made in the downtown area, and the numerous events, festivals, parades, bike races, runs, those kind of things in the downtown area. In the City of Winston-Salem Legacy Development Guide that was created in 2007, of course, the vision is to make downtown a destination by creating a core of vibrant, intense mixed use in a very pedestrian-friendly environment. Also, if you look at some of the investments in the downtown area, over $150 million in investments in downtown Winston-Salem. And the goals, if you go around the flow chart, is to increase economic development, of course, the allocation of public safety resources, downtown Winston-Salem partnership, and also, as I mentioned earlier, the perception of crime by prospective events and developers in the downtown area. And of course, this is the biggie, the privacy concerns. Right now, the downtown camera project would record basically the downtown area where anybody else could record. Of course, people are down there now with cell phones that have the capability to take photographs, take videos. On the downtown public street, there is no expectation of privacy. The cameras will only record what the average citizen is capable of recording. The footage will be restored for approximately 30 days unless it's needed for some type of criminal investigation. And also, it will be a public education campaign prior to any implementation of the downtown camera project. Just an example, here in 2014, almost 2015, cameras are everywhere. The footage that you see on the right is a camera shot from one of our Winston-Salem Transit Authority buses. Most retail establishments have some kind of camera system when you walk in the door to monitor who's entering. Also, they can record their parking lots. When you buy gas, there's cameras on you. When you walk into a convenience store, the picture that's on your right, that's when you walk into a convenience store, you're also being recorded. Presently, the cameras in the downtown area, there's approximately 45 private businesses that have cameras already deployed in the downtown area. We have some through the city's Department of Transportation. We have some in this building, City Hall North and City Hall South. The Clark Camera Transit Center has cameras in the terminal and also on the buses, the library, the courthouse, and also the sheriff's office. So I have all this up here to say that having cameras in the downtown area is nothing new. You know, these would be additional cameras that would be used for public safety in the downtown area. The initial area of deployment, if you see on this map, would be 4th and 5th Streets from Poplar to Liberty Street, and also along Cherry Street from 4th to 8th Street, Trade Street in the Arts District from 4th to 8th Street, and also in our 3 city parks in the downtown area. And I'll click through these pretty quick. Mercer Plaza, the centerpiece of downtown. We would like to have a camera in that area. Corporate Plaza for the events that take place at that location, and also Winston Square Park. I'll skip the video for the sake of time, but just an example of some of the benefits. These photographs were taken in the downtown area from a camera system that the police department can deploy when needed. This individual stole a little over $13,000 worth of metal in the area, and without the footage from the cameras, you know, this person would probably still be out doing what he normally does. Also, some of the benefits, this footage came from 2 city facilities where we deployed some of our cameras, and we were able to make an arrest. So you can see the impact on public safety. You can see the impact on reducing crime by having such a system in the downtown area. Some of the other North Carolina cities that presently have camera systems, some of the largest cities, Charlotte, Fayetteville, Greensboro will be implementing a system this year, and also Raleigh. And that's the short version. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Chief, I'm sure you're going to have a number of questions.
Okay.
I'm ready. I'll start off by saying something, then I'll just kind of start left and we'll go around. I know there's a lot of people who want to be heard, but I am not opposed to having cameras downtown, which is downtown's Winston-Salem's living room, rather, as a pilot program. Not a problem. But I do think that there are other areas as it relates to public
Right.
safety that could use similar pilot programs. And I hope that we have propositions in place to look to move toward that system. And I direct that also to our city manager.
That is the point. That is, go ahead.
That's one of the things that we're looking at. This initial project was, I wanted to start it in the downtown area, and we can gradually move out into other areas of the city that need additional attention.
All right. In all fairness, Councilmember Adams, you wanted to be heard long before the chief came up to the podium to speak. So we'll start with you, then we'll come to Councilmember McIntyre.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
Thank you very much. My concern and my issue with this is, again, just like Councilmember Taylor said, this is all good, but where's the data that tells me I got an issue with crime downtown versus the issues I have in the northeast, southeast, and east ward? I know we're getting the police district stations, Mr. Garrity, but that's also down the road. If you're going to do cameras, they need to be where the crime is actually happening, and I need to see the data. You know, I have nothing against the businesses that want to do this downtown, but in my community, when I'm getting calls from Cherry Hill and Neal Place, of their houses being broken into, and nobody can, tell who did it, and their children, I can't, right now, until they put that on the front burner, Mr. Chair, first, then I can deal with downtown. And the data's going to show, just like we decided on the southeast gets the police district first, because the data showed us you needed it the most. I need to see that same kind of data, the downtown area versus the northeast, the east, the southeast, and the north ward.
Councilmember McIntosh.
My first question relates to cost. What's the cost benefit of this versus hiring more police officers and having them on the street? And what does a camera cost? But more importantly, what does it cost to support that camera? Because people have to be on the backside of this, either trying to find things that are getting ready to occur, or going back and seeing what has happened and following up from that direction.
Well, I do have a general cost, depending on how many, or if we decide to implement this project. I have a general cost for 15, or a general cost for 20 cameras just to start. But I will say, for a cost-benefit analysis, I think the cameras would actually be less than trying to train, equip a 5 to 10 police officers, or even one police officer. Just a basic quote for about 20 cameras, it would be in the range of $65,000 to $85,000.
As we move forward with this, because I think we will, regardless of the location, I do want to keep a handle on those costs of the backside support, because there's got to be bodies behind this. Nobody reviews the tapes, and they're worthless. I've got questions about implementation. Again, it's going to go on in discussion, but some cities have done very well. The Chicago and Baltimore both saw significant decreases in their crime rates, like 25–30%. D.C. and London have seen no improvement. London has spent over $200 million on their camera program since the mid-'80s, and really have shown nothing for it. So everything I've read talks about the implementation side on it. Having the cameras there is not a silver bullet. So I'll be interested to see how we're going to implement this, what we're using as a baseline, and what other models we're going to follow.
Are your questions exhausted?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burr.
Thank you. I agree with what I've heard. The tax dollars that are being paid, they're coming from all over this city. And we are going to select an area for a pilot program. I'm not against pilot programs. That's how we can evaluate. But it seems to me, along with talking about downtown, could you have found in areas where we do have crime out, to have tried one alone in that particular, as well as with what you're trying downtown?
Yes, ma'am. One of the reasons for starting downtown, since it is the downtown's central business district where we have large-scale events, parades, concerts, those kind of things, that's why the downtown was chosen.
But I hear that, Chief Roundtree, it was chosen. But I'm saying with the chosen one, could you sort of go out and choose some out of? Does that sound reasonable or not?
Yes, ma'am. And that is the plan in the future, where we would like to expand the initial camera probably.
Okay, well, wait. Mayor Pro Tem Burke, wait a minute now. Sometimes a joke is a funny way of telling the truth. 20 cameras is what you proposed, Chief, just under 85,000. I think I'll pose your question in a different way, but it might be the same result. Could we take 10 cameras and put them elsewhere in the city where the statistics show that cameras are necessary, and then take 10 and put them downtown? Still the same 85,000, but the cameras get spread across in more than one pilot program fashion.
That's one of the things that we could look at.
Mr. Manager, I'm going to go to Councilmember Light. Well, we need to hear from you on this one.
I think that's a good idea. We can look at, as we did with police districts, where the data indicates there'll be the best bang for our buck with cameras. So where you've got high incidences of either robberies, break-ins, traffic problems also, that where our citizens are at risk, and see how we can do basically a citywide pilot.
That's why you city manager.
That's right. Councilmember Light.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that leads me to want this downtown is, I don't know if others of you have gotten complaints from citizens who are downtown late and are accosted by, maybe it's just panhandlers or whatever. Certainly that is our living room, as everybody talks about, where restaurants are open late, where bars are open late, where there are musicians, and there are a lot of visitors for conventions and whatnot. So I definitely think at least one of the pilots should be downtown and with an adequate amount of coverage in those sensitive areas. But now, are we going to have fights over where the other 10 cameras
I'm sure that'll happen, but that's a good fight.
Yeah. But if there is, in fact, a way to identify someplace that would be a good tool. Now, I just remind you that the community development, neighborhood services, tried using cameras on dump sites.
And graffiti.
And no joy in that. I mean, they never were able to get good pictures of license plates and whatever to find the dumping. So
I imagine these cameras might be a little bit more high tech.
Yeah.
could be, yes.
Attorney Carmen, excuse me, Councilman Light.
Just keep in mind, as we look at going more into residential areas, there are some additional concerns in terms of positioning the cameras. You don't want to capture someone in the house doing things they don't want seen on the camera, but that's an additional concern we just have to be mindful of.
Yes, ma'am. But there are businesses and bars and other areas other than residential, but it's good to keep the residential piece in mind. Councilman Light, I interrupted you.
No,
I know
that's
Chief
quite
Roundtree.
all right. Go ahead.
Chief Roundtree.
One of the things I failed to mention, with this camera system, we can tie into the present cameras downtown. We can also tie into the cameras that the housing authority have at their locations, whether it's the different towers or either the other sites around the city that the housing authority have now.
Councilmember Montgomery.
On that same note, in terms of being able to tie in, if I'm not mistaken, Innovation Quarter has cameras within those areas. There's something sitting on those. Is that tied to the police department now?
No, it's not.
Are they interested, or do they just keep that for themselves and for their own?
Assistant Chief Weaver.
As a portion of that, we've had Wake Forest, the university itself, who has approximately 200 cameras between their facilities at both the Coliseum, the BB&T Stadium, and also on their main campus. And Wake Forest is interested in us being able to tie into that network that they have of cameras. We just haven't had that conversation going all the way out to Innovation Quarter, but my guess would be they would be interested in having us tied into that also. And then one of the other things I'd like to state also is that when we talk about going into the neighborhoods, we felt that it would probably be best to start in what is a very public area where we're specifically drawing people down into the public area until we start going into neighborhoods where there may start be concerns about, now you're looking in my window with the police camera, now you're looking in my backyard, those types of things.
Right. Thank you, Assistant Chief.
And
Councilman Montgomery. Councilman Montgomery.
Additionally, what is the actual funding source for this? Who asked?
Well, we have a few options. We would like to use a mixed funding source, maybe forfeiture funds and also from the city's general fund.
Okay. And then the last part of it is in reference to the portion in terms of how and where we start. I share a similar concern in terms of the fact of the center police in terms of being downtown and what people see that as, whether or not we are intentional in expanding into other areas. I represent a small portion of this where there'll be the cameras located there, and I wouldn't necessarily say it would be the first place that I would say I would advocate for a camera, but I'll yield to you as in the areas that you've located on that. And the only concern I would have is that if we take away 10 out of this and do something else, or if we decrease the number we're looking to do in this, what does that do to what I think Councilman McIntosh spoke to earlier in terms of implementation and the actual impact of what we're looking for in terms of actually putting the cameras in? So I understand the desire, and I too have areas that I would rather see some of the cameras, but if we're going to do it here, let's do it here so that we get the best bang for our intent and what we're looking to do. That would be what I would ask for, because I would, again, there's other places I would advocate for them to go, but if we're going to do it, let's do it in place, get the benefit, get real data based upon what we're looking at, and then be able to compare that to implementation in other places rather than dispersing it and dispersing the effect that we're looking to get out of it.
I'm going to come to Councilman, like, I want to make a quick comment. I think all of us at the table and those who will be at the table on Monday, every council member does not have a piece of the downtown area, Councilman Montgomery, and I think it's always difficult for me when I go into community meetings to explain how we continue to spend dollars downtown and not spend them elsewhere. And I'm not saying that it is happening, but perception is often reality. So I think if we spend money somewhere, and tax dollars come from everywhere, I think it ought to be spread evenly. So if we're going to get our bang for a buck, fine, as long as I can be guaranteed that, other areas will be looked at, because this is the Public Safety Committee across the whole entire city of Winston-Salem, not just downtown. I'm not saying anyone's proposing that it's just downtown, but it's important that we be cognizant of every area of the city and not just one. I get your point, though. Councilman Burlight.
Thank you. This is actually a question for Jeff. You mentioned London and
Washington, D.C.
that had seen no benefit.
D.C. did not show in your opinion, a measurable difference, decrease in crime rates.
Is that a function of the size of those cities? I mean, I read a lot of detective fiction, and boy, in London, they're always finding people with those cameras.
The ones
I wonder if that is a function of
Baltimore and Chicago were the two that showed very good results.
Well,
so they're both large. They're all large cities.
Okay.
This is for informational purposes only, Madam City Attorney. Mr. Manager, you've heard our comments. I don't think anyone is opposed to having this particular concept downtown. But we just keep in mind other areas of the city. If we need to break up the pilot program, maybe try to advocate to raise the funding in order to put cameras elsewhere to add on to the pilot. But I think that is kind of our mandate to you, to look into how we can improve on what the chief has brought us today. Do you want to be heard on that?
No, absolutely. I think what I'm hearing is cameras could be a very good thing for many parts of the community. So we'll do some work and come back.
Is there anyone who wished to be heard other than the chief before we adjourn on this particular issue?
I wouldn't mind hearing Jason, since we have Jason Thiel here, whether he's got any opinion on impact to perception of downtown, whether it tells people that we don't think we're safe or that.
And give your name and address again for the record, please, sir.
Yes, sir. 305, or Jason Thiel with the Downtown Winston-Salem Partnership, 305 West 4th Street, Suite 2E. I have been focusing probably on about 5 or 6 other topics, but I can tell you that people have come to expect this type of camera things. I think most of the things that I've heard from people is that they're surprised we don't already have them, and that's generally the sense that I think there's a very little expectation of privacy on a street like 4th or Trade Street. However, there's always going to be people who do have privacy concerns, so I'll continue to communicate with our business owners and see if there's anything that boils up on that topic.
All right. Is there anything else on this issue? Before we adjourn, we've recognized Chief Roundtree and the assistant chiefs and the whole police department who's here. Thank you for being here, but I wanted to take a moment to recognize our fire chief, Chief Anthony Farmer. Chief, stand up so we can see you. We also want to give the fire department respect as well. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
Yes, it was Friday. Was it Friday? We did the unveiling of the piece of art. You know, we're trying to make our city a very beautiful place, and we know people like to gather downtown. So from the centennial, we had the unveiling of the art. And I invite all of you to go down to Courtland Plaza to look at that piece of art. It's really beautiful. And our city is a city, we move forward, and we work hard to have a very good city and a very positive city. Thank you.
There's nothing else for the good of the order. We will now consider this meeting to be Members of the committee, we were just about to adjourn. Is it okay to hear from a citizen?
Yes.
If we can keep it brief. Ms. Henley, I know who you are, but you'll give your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Gardenia Henley, and I live at 4920 Walkertown Road. I have a couple of concerns about the cameras. I heard the question and answers, but I still was not too clear on it. As far as the full body cameras, I understand that the police department, well, the police officers will be able to delete certain information. I don't see any good quality control over that. I heard the answers, but it still didn't sound like the police departments could not delete what they should not, if you follow what I'm saying. And also, so I'd like to get some clarity on that. Who's going to make sure that the police officers are not deleting what they shouldn't delete? Who's going to make sure that they're turning them on? I know that it's a policy, but rules are always made to be broken. So who's going to make sure that they're turning them on at the right times and they're turning them off at the right times and vice versa? Also, I have a question about the cameras in the communities. I do think that it's a good idea to put the cameras in the communities that need them the most. Downtown area, you have businesses who, most of them probably have cameras that have pretty good coverage themselves, but I am concerned that there are communities where, you know, the crime rate is higher than others, and those communities really should be covered. I think that putting 10 cameras downtown and then 10 cameras somewhere else was the point if you don't have the statistics, like I think Dee Dee was saying, to actually justify that. I mean, I don't think you need to experiment and say, well, you know, downtown's going to be an experimental area when you've got areas where you know that there's crime. And I think that you can avoid being able to put cameras in a person's door or whatever. I lived in the Washington, D.C. area, and I worked in Washington, D.C., and those cameras work. I mean, they really do. You can even use the cameras for traffic, you know, say like people running lights or drunk drivers or things like that. You can key right into the license tag, and sometimes you can see the person there. So that was basically all that I had to say. I said I'm not clear that the police department, that the police officers are going to have enough quality control on themselves. You know, if you're following what I'm saying.
I do.
And I think that's going to be a major problem with the community if we don't, you know, come to some type of final agreement. Who's going to have good oversight over that? And also, this is a sticky issue, and I'll be done. But I think that there are good police officers, and I'm always going to be a straight shooter, and there's some bad ones too. And so, are we targeting the police officers that have problems with complaints that have been proven to be valid? So are those police officers going to be the ones who have the cameras on first, or are you just going to give it to the more nicer, so to speak, police officers, the ones that don't have records of having done egregious things or what have you? Those are my questions, and I was going to put it in writing, so I'm glad that you all gave me the forum to be able to say that, but would you all promise me that those things would be addressed at the next meeting or at the city council's meeting? Or would you like for me to put it in writing?
Yeah, I think if you put it in writing, that'd be good. As Mayor Pro Tem Burke always said when she was the chair, City Hall is for everybody. So we thank you for coming down and speaking.
All right.
Chief, you don't have to address this today, but when it comes back to the committee for discussion, if you can just bring us a little bit more logistics on the checks and balances of body cameras, and the other issue on the cameras, we'll get some numbers and statistics and find out, which way we go in reference to the neighborhood cameras.
Problem for me.
Could you say that again?
Turning the cameras on and off is going to be a problem for me. When will they turn them on? Whether it's a policy or not, when will they turn them on? When will they turn them off? I don't think it should be up to the police officer to do that, and I think that Councilwoman Burke touched on that too, or probably all of you did at some point, but that's a big issue. That and who's going to actually get the first cameras that are issued. Are you going to give it to certain police officers, or how would that be done? I know that Police Chief Roundtree said that there's going to be some quality control with the supervisors, but if you got a supervisor that really likes a police officer, then where are you? And he know that something was deleted or whatever. Trust but verify.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem, Chief, start making your way up to the podium,
Oh,
and we're gonna get out of here. And
Them now. You gonna answer the question?
I think he wanted to be heard very, very briefly.
May I just say, Ms. Henley, you don't have to write those questions, just in the minutes.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Chief can get that from the minutes and
We'll
answer
respond.
them. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. So I think she's insisted to put it in writing, though you don't have to. Chief, you'll wait to bring your comments to the next meeting. Is there anyone else who wish to be heard on body cameras or anything else for the good of the order? Thank everybody for coming out. We consider this meeting to be adjourned.